again. Bats and Stats presented by ScoutTheStatline.com. Myself, Brian, as always, and my cohort, Ross R. Jensen. Ross, how we doing tonight, buddy?
I'm good. I've had a really busy last half week or so. A lot of new stuff at Scout the Stat Line, as we kind of covered in the last episode. Burning the candle at both ends. I've just been exhausted, but I'm starting to feel a little re-energized, so I'm ready to go. Let's go and get this thing.
Okay, so tonight we got some pretty exciting stuff. We've been, like what Ross was saying, is we've been burning the candle at both ends. We got some spoilers coming, some little tiny spoilers, and then we're gonna hit a couple of guys that I picked out of Scout the Stat Line's leaderboards. Pretty excited about, and then we're gonna jump into some fun historical comps. Probably my favorite part of Scout the Stat Line is the historical comps, because it just kind of puts a reflection on some of these guys. And obviously, we don't know if they're going to be those guys, but it's fun to see random names pop up. And a couple of them on here I really, really like. They are really, really good comps. But before we get into any of that, we have to do what is going to become the most popular part of the pod, in my opinion. And that's the beer of the pod. Beer of the pod. And I'm going to go first because I always make you go first. And I'm always like, oh, I'm going to switch it up and let Ross go first. Now, no, I'm going to go first tonight. And I'm going to do this little spiel right here. Made in Montana.
Yeah.
So this is Salmon Fly Honey Rye. And I've had this beer quite a bit. This comes out of the Madison River Brewing Company in Montana. Yeah, Salmon Fly Honey Rye. It's a great name, by the way. Anytime you can rhyme something, that's a great rhyme.
It's a great rhyme or a great time?
Both. I see what you did there. And then I have a cup. We go to Deadwood quite a bit. I don't know if you guys have ever been to Deadwood or anything like that, but we go to cool August nights in Deadwood, gambling, cars. Pretty good stuff.
There we go.
And I didn't get any hit on it. God. I'm going to be all bubbly now. Very powerful, very strong flavor. It does have a little writing on the back, and I'll say the annual salmon fly hatch occurs in early summer on the Madison River. In recognition, Madison River Brewing Company presents Salmon Fly Honey Rye. The malted barley used in this unique brew is complemented by the subtle spiciness of rye. Bittering and flavor hop additions balance the sweetness from the hint of pure Montana honey to complement a delightful drinking experience. It's really hard to read. It's in like cursive, but it's just really hard to read. And then with a rounded salmon fly, the one on today. It's good. It's a good beer.
All right. I like it.
Yeah.
Local flavor. Okay. Yeah. Here's my beer. This one's called Minimalist. Let's see if I can get a good angle here. Minimalist Bane. That's a skeleton on there. Dancing around with a bottle that has 3 X's on it. It says down here, man can give up everything in life but this IPA.
And fantasy baseball.
And fantasy baseball, yeah. So this is, in fact, an IPA. It says this dry hopped English style IPA offers plenty of golding hops to convey a floral and delicate nose, while 2 row and crystal malts keep this traditional English style IPA well balanced. This one's coming out of McCall, Idaho. So I'm going pretty local as well. So I'm going to give her a pop and a pour.
I'm a little bit curious about your Idaho beers. Are they all huge like this?
No, I go to the co-op usually when I'm picking something out for this, and they just have a lot of these specialty beers, and I just go to a certain section that tends to be the big singles. Generally, they got all sorts of stuff. I could go with the smaller regular cans, but I'm just trying to check out something unique. Did I say who this was from? McCall Brewing Company.
Yeah.
Out of McCall. Yeah. All right, let's give it a try. It's a darker IPA, as you can see, and definitely maltier. I'm almost surprised that this is not a double IPA, given how malty it is. Yeah, and only 6.7%. It's good. It is a little unique with that heavy malty flavor, as opposed to a very hoppy, strong IPA that you typically get, especially in this area. So I enjoy it, and I would definitely recommend you check it out.
Let's dive into it, man.
Okay.
So, spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Scout Statline is going to have its first mid-season top 100 prospects. It's probably going to come out before this pod does. So, I know it, I'm saying spoiler alert, but
if you're already in the Discord, you will see it there. In fact, I already teased my top 50. My top 100 is ready to go. I might make some refinements before the list goes out, which is Thursday, by the way. Thursday, the first STS consensus top 100 list is coming out. It's going to be big. And then also the Dynasty Guru is working on re-ranking of all their positional lists.
Yep.
I don't know about you, Brian, but I know my rankings are going to feed directly into that too. So it's like, it's like killing two birds with one stone. We're doing a top 100 at a STS, and then Dynasty Guru is usually top by position. They're going to be doing all major league and minor league, so there's going to be some extra work to do, of course. But
yeah, absolutely, yeah, and this is going to be the first annual for Dynasty Gurus doing a midseason as well.
Yeah, a lot of big stuff, and this stuff is all going to go out into that Discord too. So get on there. Even if you're going through Dynasty Guru instead of Scout the Statline, you're probably going to see all the Scout the Statline rankings too. So just an added extra little benefit there.
Is there anything you'd like to throw a spoiler out there on your top 100? I know I have a couple that I'm a little bit. I even had a tough time. I had a massively tough time doing my ranking because I have my personal beliefs. And then I kind of want to follow the industry a little bit, and I did. But there was a lot in there that I was switching and going like, I really like this guy. I'd like to move this guy up higher. I did a lot of jumbling, a lot of mixing and matching. So it looks good. I'm pretty satisfied with it. The top 50 were a heck of a lot easier than the bottom 50. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun.
It's interesting when you're doing rankings, because I ended up doing some things that I didn't think prior to going into it that I would have done. And that's mostly just because you do a lot of internal debate, right? And there are some guys that, over the years, maybe I built, or over the last year or 2 years, hasn't been forever, obviously. These guys haven't been around for that long. But you kind of build up these biases, as you were saying, like certain things, like certain players. And so I try to omit that as much as I can.
Yeah.
And stick to the rationality and the logic. Like, what reason would I have for putting this guy above this guy? If there is no reason, then I'm not going to do it. I'm going to take the logical position and go with that. I'm pretty happy with the top end of my rankings. I think you get into the lower end, and that's where it gets a lot trickier. Because there's a lot of guys that I wanted to make my top 100 that I just couldn't quite rationalize getting them in a position up there. and I probably ranked about 140 some guys all told, but I only really fine-tuned the top 100 because that's what our goal was, is to have 100. So those other 40 guys that I wanted, they just didn't quite find a spot. Some things that I would like to highlight from it. One of the guys that I really like, and I tweeted about him earlier in this year. I own him where I can. And in our home league that we play together, I own him. Edouard Julien didn't come in as high as I thought he would after I did all my rankings. He's still number 26, so he's not low by any means, but I thought I would have him a little bit higher when it came down to it. Who else do I want to highlight? Everybody knows that I love Adele Amador. I have him way higher than STS. It's Ross versus the Machine on that one. I've got him at number 14 on my list. I just am going to continue having him climb until he's number one. It's going to happen. Jackson Chorio fell a little bit for me. Junior Caminero made a very large leap, and he was already pretty highly ranked by me coming into the season. I think I had him in the 30s. So if I'm saying he made a large leap, he's pretty high up there. And then everybody knows who my personal number one is, so I don't need to beat that one. Oh, a guy I want to talk about today. If we get a chance, I want to insert him into our lineup here. Luis Matos. I have him at number 18 overall.
Big news tonight. Big news tonight.
And he got the call tonight. And interestingly enough, I was just on Twitter just before we did this, and Prospect Tilt had said he's a top 10 prospect. And I was like, whoa, that's bold, man. That's bold. I had him at 18. So I as far as I knew, that was the most aggressive ranking of Luis Matos that existed up until I heard he was top 10 from Prospect Tilt. So, maybe I have to move him up before Thursday. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I've tried to go get him.
Yeah. I also had Amador, but he came in at number 20 for me. But he did make my top 20. I'm an Amador fan. Couple other little highlights. Colt Keith. Man, I love Colt Keith.
Yep.
Really high. And I could not move him down.
Where'd you put him?
He is at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He came in at 11.
It's pretty good. I have him at 13, so we're on the same wavelength.
Colt Keith came in really high. Christian Encarnacion Strand came in at 14.
Yeah, he's a tricky one for me because there's a lot of red flags there, but you cannot just ignore a guy that's slugs like he does, and he has been doing it for a long time now.
Yep.
So
love that guy. And then just a couple other players that I don't think anybody else has them on their list, but I'm just a huge fan of. I have planted my flag on these 4 individuals: AJ Vukovic, Hao Yu Lee, Kai Bush, and Nico Kavadas. They all made my top 100.
Who is your top pitcher?
My top pitcher is still Painter.
Okay.
And he's actually number 3.
I have him at number 7 on my list, which was the same I had him at this preseason. So he's in the same position anyway. Okay. Anyone that you moved up from the pitching ranks that was a surprise?
Yeah, and I think a couple of our fellow STSers are really, really high on him, but Bobby Miller is really high.
Yeah. Okay.
And there's going to be there's going to be a lot of people that did our rankings that have Bobby Miller massively high. And I'm not going to shout their names out right now, but let's just say that he's top 10 for a couple people.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is saying something. Yeah. So I moved Emmett Sheehan pretty high. I don't think that that's a surprise, really. People know that I've been interested in Sheehan. So he made a large jump for me. And Yuri Perez, who is a fantastic prospect. Probably I was way too low on coming into this year because he was one of everybody's top guys, but I've moved him way up because he showed a lot this year. And then he's gone into the big leagues and he's continued to be dominant at 20 years old. So he's gone way up. He's right behind Painter for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I have him top 15. I also have another. This was probably a recency biased, but I have Andrew Abbott in the top 25. And that's a recency bias. I know it is. I've seen what he's been doing, and that's what popped him up my list. If this would have happened a month ago, Andrew Abbott would not be this high, but he is lighting things up.
Yeah, no, I'm okay with it. I've got him in my top 35.
Yeah.
Just a little bit lower than you. He's at number 34 overall for me.
But yeah,
what about the guys that we covered last week? I'm curious. Did any of those guys make your top 100? The three mustached fellows.
Yeah, two of them.
Furman, Wade Meckler, and Ignacio Alvarez.
I don't think Alvarez did. Let me take a look. I think he was one of my omits that I was really upset about. But yes, Furman came in and Meckler came in. Meckler is about 10 spots higher than Furman.
It's interesting because when I was first, and same for me, Alvarez did not make my top 100. When I was first looking at those three gentlemen and wanting to talk about them, I had this ordering probably the opposite. Well, not quite. I had Alvarez as my top of those three, and now he didn't quite make my top 100. And Meckler, I had the lowest because I was just a little skeptical of some of those performance numbers. I have him at number 87. You know what? I like those guys. I like contact first players, and I think they just get overlooked. And the reason that he's in my top 100, he might not be as flashy as some of the guys that most people are going to have in their top 100s over him, but I think he's got as much, if not more, of a chance of being a successful pro. And then Nate Furman I've got at number 69.
And then one guy that I think you want to hit on just a little bit. I've seen you post about him here and there, and you mentioned something in our Slack conversation is Sung Chi Chang.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just so underrated.
Yeah.
And still flying even under my radar as I was like going through this, looking at rankings. I think I have him too low. I might have to move him up by Thursday because I think I got him too low. Right now he's at number 74. Too low. He's too low, Brian. I got to move him up. He's going to go up. He's moving up.
That's funny. I have him at 74 too.
Yeah. Well, things change, you know. I did this about a week ago and it's already different. That's the power of STS, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to wait for our rankings releases.
Love it. I love it. You guys are going to enjoy it. So please, if it's going to be free, then obviously look at it. But if it's not going to be free, maybe you're going to have to pony up a little bit of cash to see what's going on in our scouting world.
So the way that this is going to work at Scout the Statline, when you see these consensus rankings, is you'll see a list of all of the different STS contributors and their rankings. And then the front column of that list will be the overall average ranking of those players. So it's going to be really helpful. You're not just looking at one person's rankings here. You got a list of them. So there's going to be probably personalities that you agree with more, and you'll be able to take a look at what they think. And then you get a nice balanced overall ranking. So it's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm excited. I'm excited to see who was omitted and who would, made the top 100s. There's going to be, I'm probably going to be the only one that have like AJ Vukovic on there, but really high on the guy. So
Yeah, maybe we can do like a min max column too, like who had him the highest, who had him the lowest.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm excited. I'm excited to see it. So I would hope that everybody else is as well. So
Oh, for
uh,
sure.
with that, we got two guys I want to talk about tonight. I was going through the STS uh, probability, not probability rankings, but STS model, and I found two guys that I was really interested in. So first off, we're going to hit on Adrian Pinto. Adrian Pinto is with the single A affiliate with the Toronto Blue Jays. He is 5'6", 156 pounds. He is 20 years old. He was an international signee. Um, First thing I want to touch on with Pinto is he has 70 stolen bases in his minor league career so far. That's 429 at bats. He has 70 stolen bases. His overall average is 291. His on base percentage is 427. And he's not a power guy. That's not why we're looking at him. His slugging percentage is only 420. He has 5 career home runs in 429 at bats. 24 doubles and 8 triples. Those can turn into home runs, but that's not what we're expecting from him. This is a straight up speed guy, and this is a straight up on base machine. He has 84 walks in his career and only 75 strikeouts.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have anything on Pinto? Is he a guy that you're targeting that you're really watching?
So when Pinto came up, he actually was signed by the Rockies and traded to the Blue Jays. But he that first year in the DSL, he put up lights out numbers.
Yep.
And he was one of those guys that was a little troubling for our single season data systems because he was just filling up the he was just filling up the leaderboard. He was filling up the box scores, and he was a troubling guy. According to the statistics, there it was like a speed machine. 41 stolen bases in not even half a season of plate appearances. 224 plate appearances. You extrapolate that. He's like 100 stolen base guy. He was hitting for decent power there. He was 18 years old at the time. Great plate discipline. He was one of those guys that kind of throws it for a loop. And this is again why it's hard to trust DSL statistics. He was placed in single A last year. Numbers came down predictably, but I was watching him really closely because of that DSL performance. So he dropped quite a bit in the STS system, and he was a riser again this year early on in the season, even though the power has not come around at all, but his plate discipline has gotten really strong. The words of warning here is he's repeating single A, and his numbers have actually taken a dip overall. He's hurt right now, and so I think part of that is injury driven, and it's still a fairly small sample in the season overall. So he gets back in and he's healthy and he's continuing to hit. We'll see those rise again. But yeah, I think you're right on the money. I think the Blue Jays saw something in this guy. That's why they went out and acquired him. That was prior to the 2022 season start, by the way. So right after that DSL year, which I'm kind of surprised that the Rockies were willing to part with him. But it's still kind of a wait and see because this is the kind of profile. He's a small guy, but like an Altuve, like maybe you see some power develop in a guy like this. He's got excellent plate discipline. He's got some speed. If he can get that piece added into his game, he's an impact player. If he doesn't, he might still be an all right player from the on base hitting and stealing bases perspective. I don't know if those stolen bases are going to translate quite as well at like the professional level. Right now, he kind of looks like a poor man's Nate Furman to me.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair. One thing that I know you say this quite a bit is the last thing that develops is power. I mean, he's got his average isn't massively high right now, but he is so patient with that baseball, man. You know, like I said, his average this year is 247 and 97 at bats, but his on base percentage is 402.
Yeah.
He only has 25 strikeouts and 22 walks.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty impressive for a 20-year-old in A ball. And he comes back and starts swinging the bat by the end of the year. It probably high A, but I mean, if he sees double A, that's pretty impressive.
Yep, absolutely. I
I
agree.
like it. I like this profile quite a bit.
Yeah, there's potential here. This is the kind of profile that often gets slept on, but there's something there underneath the numbers. But you got to see it first, right?
Oh
You
yeah,
can't just rely on it being there. This is a guy that I'm watching right now with intrigue to see what happens. Um, Nobody thought Jose Altuve was a worthwhile prospect either. And I know I beat this drum all the time, but there's a lot of similarities here. Um, Altuve was a guy that could put the bat on everything. He had great plate discipline, great plate approach. He was probably a little bit better. He was a better hitter than what we're seeing right now from Pinto, but he developed power later. In fact, he didn't even really develop power until he was a professional. So, but by the time he was graduating from the minor leagues, all of a sudden he was hitting 400 in minor league ball, and everybody was still kind of like, "Yeah, it's not gonna play in the major leagues." Sure enough, it did, and now he's like a 30 home run guy too. So,
yeah. So yeah, everybody keep that on your minds. Adrian Pinto with the Blue Jays. Next guy, once again, I think there was kind of a theme tonight that I was looking for. And these are more or less Ross's kind of guys. And these are guys that can control the strike zone. They know when to swing the bat and they know when not to. The next one is Terrell Tatum. And Terrell Tatum is with the high A affiliate with the Chicago White Sox. He is 5'9", 167 pounds. He's 23 years old, a little bit older than what we're looking for in high A, but that's okay because this profile is going to play. He has overall in his career 387 at bats. He has batted 258. His on base percentage is 425. That is 109 strikeouts, or I'm sorry, 144 strikeouts to 109 walks. He has seven home runs overall, three triples, 29 um, doubles, and his slugging percentage is 403. So once again, the power numbers aren't with these two fellas. We're looking at straight on base percentages and stolen bases. He has 51 stolen bases in 387 at bats. What do we got on Terrell Tatum, Ross?
oh, you're right. I mean, I think you kind of nailed it with him. You have to wonder if he's passive to a fault because in 228 plate appearances this season, he's either walked or he's struck out in 111 of plate appearances.
Yeah.
That's a lot. I mean, that's a lot of plate appearances where he's not ending that play with the ball in play. Um, that's almost half.
Yeah.
So probably that's questionable. Like you probably are going to need to get a little more aggressive as you get up, or those walks might start turning into strikeouts, as people are actually pitching in the zone and hitting corners and making you have to swing in order to stay alive. So that's something to watch. A lot of people will talk about this like it's a huge problem being too passive. I don't know that I'm seeing evidence of that really in the major leagues. Like people keep talking about this being a problem for Juan Soto, and we're talking about one of the best players in the major leagues when we're talking about him. So, oh yeah, it's a huge problem. The other players that aren't swinging, they're pretty good ball players too. So,
Yeah.
so I don't know. It remains to be seen, but I can see that being a bigger issue for a guy that's 23 in high A as he's moving up to double A.
Yeah.
And as he's moving up to triple A. So those are things to watch out for, but the speed is absolutely there. He's got a 440 OBP on the year, insanely high, and he's got 28 stolen bases. Again, extrapolation is not everything, but we're talking about a guy that could steal 70 bases over the course of the season. So that's quite a bit of stolen bases. That'll help. That's for sure.
Yeah, these were two guys that I loved what they were doing in their profiles with all the walks. The strikeout numbers were still a little high, but like they were manageable. And their averages were in a decent spot. They just needed, like you were saying, get the bat off your shoulder and swing the bat. But
Yeah.
on the high side or on the other side of that is pitchers are going to have to paint those corners with these two guys. You're going to have some really good pitching to get these guys out. Otherwise, they're fine taking a walk, and then they're basically turning a walk into a double with all these stolen bases. On the other side of that, both of these two characters get caught stealing a little too much, just a little bit too much. But I think they're both speed guys, and the timing of getting a stolen base is always an issue. It's not all speed. You can be a slow guy and still get stolen bases if you have good timing.
Depends on how slow you are.
But you can't be Daniel Vogelback.
I was going to say both.
Yeah.
You can't be anyone,
I didn't mean to throw that name out there, but let's be honest.
I saw an interesting tweet today that was saying he's a zero tool player.
I read the same thing, and that's exactly what popped into my mind. When you can't be that slow.
Yeah. Can we insert another player in here?
Yeah, you bet. Who do you want to go with?
I want to talk about Luis Matos.
Let's do it.
So he cracked into my top 20 in my personal rankings. This guy is not ranking very good on Scout the Statline right now. And the big reason for that is he flopped last year really badly. But I want to walk through this guy's profile because to me it's fascinating and I'm all in. And like I said, at 18 overall in my personal rankings, which I did last week, I might be too low. He's continued to hit and validate what he's been doing. And so, I might need to bump that up a little bit. So let me walk through this because this was a guy I really liked just going back 2 years. I was a big fan of this guy. I thought he was a potential future batting title contender. And I think he's back on course for that. So his first year between DSL and rookie level, he hit 367. Again, so like this is a guy that immediately is on your radar. He was 17 years old. Granted, most of those numbers came in the DSL. But this guy also apparently comes with a really nice stroke. So he checks the boxes from a scouting perspective as well, which just helps. It helps. He followed that up in 2021 after the break. His age 19 season in single A, he hit 313 with a 359 OBP and a 495 slugging percentage. Pretty solid numbers across the board. He stole 21 bases and he hit 15 home runs. So we're not talking about an Ellie De La Cruz sort of counting stats guy here. But what he does give you is he's not striking out very much. He's got a pretty low strikeout percentage. Even back then, his walk rate isn't very high, but he's a high volume contact hitter. And he's doing it with pretty good power and pretty good speed. 2022 came around and this guy's career took a total turn the wrong direction.
Nosedive.
But, and this is very similar to Nick York. They're one and the same. They've got the same narrative going on. Took a nosedive, but the caveat was it was an injury-plagued season, awful season, and filled with bad luck too. And I could see this looking through the numbers, and I thought he was a potential rebound candidate this year. But I also don't ignore it when things like that happen because I don't know for sure. I can't say for sure if a player is going to rebound from some poor season like that. But what we did get from him was only a 215 batting average. And the thing that stood out to me that was interesting about that is he had there were slightly worse strikeout and walk rates. His walk rate was actually a little bit better. His strikeout rate was a little bit worse than in 2021. But his results were markedly worse.
Mm-hmm.
He was slugging much worse. His average plummeted 100 points. His on-base percentage plummeted pretty close to the same, 90 points, 80 points. So again, he just kind of fell off everybody's radar after that. And it's impossible not to, because you can't just ignore a season like that. That was mostly at high A. And then this year, he's now 21. He's coming off this injury-plagued season. I don't know what goes into the psyche of a player going through that. But he started the year at Double-A. He was hitting pretty solidly there. And what is really interesting about the numbers is he walked 17 times and he only struck out 12. So all of a sudden his plate discipline was through the roof good. As he moved up a level in his age 21 season, he earned himself a promotion to Triple-A. Again, he's still just 21 years old. And it's just been lights out. Been game on ever since Triple-A. He has been unbelievable. Unbelievable. So this was as of yesterday. His slash line is 396 with a 434 OBP and a 660 slugging percentage. That's too low. His batting average is now over 400. And he hit another home run tonight. And he's getting the call.
He's getting the call. During mid-game.
They took him out of the game.
Said, yep, just pack your bag, bud.
Yep, and he's getting the call. So unbelievable ascent through the minor leagues. And if you have a chance to go nab him, I would go take advantage of it. I'm trying to get him in our league. We'll see if it happens. Probably won't. But you know what I'm doing? I'm writing off last season. I'm not completely ignoring it, but I'm saying that the trajectory I felt like he was on before is the trajectory he was on. And that was just a little road bump. So I moved him into my top 20. He's probably still too low.
I like what the Giants did with him. They were just like, forget about high A, man. Forget about it. It's fine. You're going to Double-A. Kid lights it up. Screw it. You're going straight to Triple-A. Lights it up. Screw it. Come on up to the majors.
Well, he got lucky too, because there was an injury that facilitated that as well. Otherwise, it would have been a tougher path. And you hate to see that. You hate to see that when a guy is mashing in the minor leagues and they just can't get up, or there is a reason why they're held down for whatever purposes or reasons or excuses. Sometimes it's just a bad excuse.
So I
love it.
I have a Hawkeye on Matos right now. And the reason I have a Hawkeye on him is the Giants do more with nothing than any other team in the league. They turn absolutely nothing into like an all-star. So
what are they going to do with the real talent now?
Yeah, what are they going to do with the real talent? I'm excited. And I'm just going to sit here and watch, because I'm not going to be able to go get him. I'm glad you added him, because I'm glad we talked about that. That was a fun one. The next little segment that I want to do in our podcast tonight is going to be just a fun thing that I like to do on STS, and that's the historical comps. If you guys haven't jumped onto the website and looked through the player rankings, they'll have a historical comp next to them. And it really is one of the funnest things for me to do, because it brings up old names, and guys that can really link a player. And a few of these ones on there tonight really link a player for me. I'll just start right into it. And we're going to do Dalton rushing equals Willie Stargell. Do you believe it?
Comp.
Believe it?
I don't think we're looking at Willie Stargell, but you never know with these guys. And he is mashing in the minor leagues. The thing with the comps, the historical comps, is it's intended to be fun and interesting. And for me, I'm always looking for comps. that's why I built it, is I wanted something that was going to link it up for me. So if I wasn't able to come up with something, then I would have something to look at. Is Dalton Rushing going to be Willie Stargell? I don't think so. But again,
Let's hope.
You never know. STS
No,
sometimes sees things that I don't. So
yeah, and that's why I brought this list into equation tonight. It's just really fun.
I love when you're getting the Hall of Fame comps though, because those are my favorite, and you don't get them very often. Like,
no.
It's interesting. We had the podcast with Ryan, and he was kind of like, some of these comps I just don't like. I don't get it. Like, that guy's not going to be as good as so and so, and it's like, well, I mean, there's thousands of prospects, and they're not getting Hall of Fame comps. It's very rare that you get that.
Nope.
You get maybe one or two, and you're going to have some of these guys turn into Hall of Famers. Probably a handful every year are going to become Hall of Famers, because that's the number of Hall of Famers that we have go into the Hall every year. Yep. So you never know. We got one of the best comps I've ever seen for Jackson Holiday earlier in the year with Rogers Hornsby.
Yep.
And now he just doesn't match up with anyone anymore. But he had Rogers Hornsby for a little bit, and I was like, whoa, that's a comp. That's a comp you want.
That's great. It's terrific. And once again, we're not saying that these guys are going to turn into them. They just have something in their profile that is linking them to a random player in the universe. And if you go through all of these guys, you're going to see Anthony Goose. You're going to see Denard Span. You're going to see Desmond Jennings.
The correlation engine loves certain players, it seems like. Christian Yelich, he is always on there all the time. Yeah. I just don't know why and what rhyme or reason there is for it pulling in these certain guys that are there all the time. Sometimes you see them back to back, like
it's just really fun, and I hope everybody jumps in there and just kind of looks at it and gets a good laugh out of it, because some of them are really funny, and just because there's no chance, and then other ones it's like, man, I can really see that. And we're going to get to a couple of them here. One that we're going to dive into next right now, unless you want to say anything else about Dalton Rushing.
I mean, I don't think it's going to happen, but I'd love for it to. I'd love for it to.
Yeah. The next one is Emmanuel Rodriguez, and he gets a comp of yo man, Jose Canseco.
All right, so I got to say this, because everybody's probably going to hate. People are probably going to hate me for saying this, but when I was growing up, Jose Canseco was my favorite player. He was the man. And if you're the same age as me, you know why, because this guy was just a superstar, and everybody wanted to be Jose Canseco. Obviously, the narrative changes a little bit over the years, but yeah, I love it. I still like Jose Canseco just because he's one of those guys I grew up on,
So speaking of Jose Canseco, did you read his book?
I did not read his book.
I haven't either.
I can't imagine that the narrative is top level. I don't know. Could be wrong on that.
Yeah, I bet it paints a glorious Bob Ross picture.
Anyway, Emmanuel Rodriguez usually is drawing a comp on here to Sammy Sosa. So again, those comps update every day. If something in the numbers triggers something new, then it will switch out to a new guy. But he had been getting Sammy Sosa quite a bit. So Sammy Sosa and Jose Canseco.
Talking about some huge power numbers.
And hopefully Manuel Rodriguez can find his stroke. His numbers have been getting better.
Yeah.
Getting better on the season, but they're not quite what they were last year.
Next one we got up. This one was really fun for me. When I first looked at it, I was like, yeah, I can see that. As I really started thinking about it, I was like, oh, absolutely. This makes a ton of sense. And that's Christian Encarnacion Strand. and he gets a comp of JD Martinez. And that is perfect. That is exactly what I feel Strand is going to turn out to be.
I mean, it would be a great outcome for him
Oh,
because
yeah.
JD Martinez has had a great career. But you're right.
Borderline
Like
Hall of Famer.
he's one of those guys that has found a way to thrive despite poor plate discipline, and you don't find those guys that much. So great prototype, and I hope it does work out like that, because that would be fun to watch on this up and coming Reds team with a bopper like a JD Martinez in the middle of the lineup. You know, they need that, and I think that it's possible. I think we might get that.
We seen a showcase tonight that showed the amount of hits that Christian gets outside the zone, and it's incredible. Just
Which
incredible.
is, I mean, there's there's two sides to that, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Because what they're showing in that graphic was that he's a good bad ball hitter. Is he still going to be a good bad ball hitter in the major leagues? That remains to be seen. So there's the risk is, is all of a sudden he going to regress to MLB averages for that? Because that's going to really hurt his numbers unless he fine tunes that approach. So I think it's time. Let's find out.
I agree, and the Reds want it too. That team is just loaded full of young talent. Let's see the rest of them get called up.
Well, and I mean, geez, what is he slugging this year? It's like 770 or something like that.
Yeah, it's pretty. Yeah, I think he hit his 17th home run tonight.
Did he hit a home run tonight?
I believe so. Yeah, I believe it was number 17.
Unreal. Prior to tonight, he was slugging 735. So, yeah, insane.
Yeah, he's going to be fun. Another one that comes up next is going to be Gabriel Gonzalez, and he gets a comp of a name that I just don't hear often enough, and I love it. Pudge Rodriguez. Do you like that one?
I think it makes sense because a lot of those ratios he could hit with a similar kind of power as Pudge did, and his walks and his strikeouts would be in the same range. I mean, it totally makes sense as I'm looking through the numbers. One thing that's kind of a knock, or so I have read about Gabriel Gonzalez, is that he's not very athletic.
Okay.
I don't know if you could say the same for Pudge, but he did have the nickname of Pudge.
It's fair.
So, who knows?
Next one we got Jason Dominguez. And I think this is a really fun comp too, is Hanley Ramirez.
Yep.
I think that's a really good comp for Jason Dominguez. The Martian gets Hanley Ramirez.
I think people forget how good Hanley Ramirez was.
He was incredible.
And how good he was of a prospect when he was coming up too. He was an incredible prospect. And he won Rookie of the Year. He won a batting title. Hanley Ramirez was kind of the do-it-all guy. He's the prototype that everybody wanted to be when he was first coming up. But the second half of his career wasn't quite the same, and I think that's what people tend to remember. But, man, he was a really good player. If that's an outcome for Jason Dominguez.
Oh, people be jumping out of their shoes, man.
Yeah. Until they forget about it and, the second half of the career occurs, I guess.
Yeah.
Yep. I think that would be something people would be happy about in the first half, though.
The next one just kind of touched my fantasy baseball fandom, I guess. And that's Brainier Benassi. And Brainier Benassi got a comp to Jason Kipnis. And as soon as I seen Jason Kipnis's name, I just got smiles on my face. He was on my fantasy baseball teams years and years ago, and he stole bases when people never stole bases. And he was probably the best second baseman for a handful of years.
He
Jason
had
Kipnis,
a reign there for a little bit where he was quite the asset. Yeah.
yeah, he was just a real soft spot in my heart was Jason Kipnis. So Brainier, Benassi, I'm glad you got that comp. It opened my eyes to kind of put a little bit of a highlight on you, bud.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
like it. I like it.
Yeah. So once again, it's just a fun little formula that STS has on their website, the historical comps. You can smile at them, you can scoff at them, you can do whatever you want with them, but I think they're fun.
Yep. I'm with you.
With that, guys, that's what we have for you in tonight's podcast of STS Bats and Stats. We'll see everybody soon.